First of all, thanks for inviting me, and then thanks for friends and all the organizers to bring me here and then giving me the opportunity to share some of my my own experiences when I was back in Burma, as well as human rights in general, and then a brief history of human rights, as well as how it's all connected to the peace and what we do here today. And hopefully I won't, bore you and then put you guys to sleep, especially we just had lunch, right? All right, so let's see. So basically, I think I'll try to, sort of like summarize. I'm sure most of you are already, familiar and then already been practicing, already been implementing the human rights, what human rights are, and then we talk about these human rights all the time, and then I just want to kind of like briefly take you back to where the idea of human rights started, right? So idea started out with way back when, I believe, very beginning of history. You can always go back there, and then it's come from the idea that all of us human beings, when we came to this world, this place, we already have these sort of rights come with us somehow in some forms. If you look at it in a different culture, if you look at it in different societies, these rights may not be written on the piece of paper or may not be signed by the international organizations, but these are already with us, that since day one. So regardless of who we are and where we're from, whether what sort of like a legal status that we hold, whether we are rich or poor, educated or not, so these rights are already with us because we are human beings. So if you also look at the origin of human rights, I'm sure most of you familiar with the Cyrus Cylinders, especially those who are from former Persian Empire and then France and then Iran right now. And the idea, the Cyrus Cylinders it's actually a piece of I think it was a baked clay. It was written in these sort of like a king decrees back in, I believe, like 540 or 539 BC. So when the first king of Persia conquered Babylon, and it's not the conquering part, the one that make him very famous. After that, what he has done was he pretty much freed all the slaves who were in Babylon at the time. Also, given everybody a choice to choose what sort of religions that they want to believe in. This has happened like over 2,000 years ago. And then that was also become the very first written sort of like statements that reference, or we can go back and reference in terms of human rights. And also, of course, from Babylon, this idea of human rights spread quickly across, you can see India, Greece, and all the way to Rome. So that's when we start seeing the Roman Empire is pretty much most of their laws are based on these natural law that human beings are capable of reasoning, and as well as we have all common expectations and the way of living out of life. And from that point on, we got to the Magna Carta, like 1215, back in England. This is one of the most comprehensive, long document that was introduced and written, and then give it to the king at the time. Imagine that back in the day, his subjects have written these documents with all kinds of rules. Think of it, all these, laws that the king has to follow. So the significant part of these are like pretty much limiting the power of the king in terms of what he can do to the people and to the to his subjects. It's very very crucial and very significant. One of the most significant documents that we have in terms of developing, implementing current day modern democracy and human rights. Because this is a document that starts talking about the separation of church and states, clearly stating that the king cannot force people to, force the church to do things that the church is not willing to do, that sort of thing. So this is a very piece of critical documents out there. And then, of course, next Once the Petition of Right, also in England in 1629 to limit the king, I believe it was Charles. And then we have the U.S. Constitution, mainly talking about more like individual rights when it comes to the U.S. Constitutions. And then we have like a French Declaration, which is, mainly derived from the Constitution that we have today. And then, of course, you know the Bill of Rights and everything. So these are the sort of like written documents that are addressing various types of human rights. Before we got to this 1948, which you all know that which we all have right now with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We have like the 30 articles, and then how they were all put in together when we first started this UN right after the Second World War. So all these documents are carefully examined and then analyzed. Not only that, if when we, of course, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was commissioned by the Eleanor Roosevelt, which is very significant and famous in terms of putting this document together. She commissioned not only scholars, religious leaders, activists, peace activists, human rights activists, politicians, everybody. Just make sure that when they put this document together, it represents everybody, everyone on this earth. So I strongly encourage to watch that about like 20 minutes documentary. I think it's the making of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can see how much energy and the time that they have spent to come up with these 30 articles that we have right now today. And from there, so in I believe in 1979, this, I think it was like a Dutch, or could be like a, I think it's a Dutch judge, came up with the idea of break it up into like different generations of human rights, which you have these 4 different generations. I'm not going to go into too much detail because I want to spend a little bit more time in terms of my experience back in Burma and what's going on in Burma right now today. So I'll give you a little bit more time on that. So pretty much, first generation is dealing with more like the rights that are, directly related to the states, right? When you look at the states, when you look at these, back then, like a lot to do with the dictators and the military. So these are the rights that sort of like protecting citizens from these types of abuses. And the second generation, we're talking about more like related to equality. And the third generation, we're talking about civil and social rights. And then the fourth generation, it's a lot to do with the individuals, and then a lot more to do with the communities, and then societies. So we kind of like, coming from the top down. So, some of these rights are very challenging for some states to implement due to the resource issues and other issues. But because of these documents, because of these rights that we have out there, a lot of democratic societies and then countries, when you look at their constitutions and then also the documents that they have, most of them incorporated these rights into their documents and our constitutions to make sure that the citizens of their countries have some level of guarantees of human rights. When someone talks about human rights, there's always sort of like debatable, sort of like a question whether these rights should be universal or not. Because if you look at some cultures and then, tribal, level, they have different sets of rules that are binding them together, and then if you look at it from the Western perspective especially, we're pretty much hanging on to these human rights as sets of rules that we, treat each other and the others. So regardless of, whether the human rights should be universal or, may not, I think if you look at every culture way back when, they all have some forms and then some idea of that, like equal freedom, brotherhood. So these things are already built in within these societies and the cultures, way before we even put these rights on the paper, right? So by looking at those, you can pretty much, realize and understand that these rights are already out there, already with us. So that makes it much more of like a universal in the sense that, how we treat each other, how we respect each other, how we interact with each other. And also because of these rights, since you have all these rights, it's not the end. This is just the beginning. It's sort of like it's sort of like a roadmap. Here's a map of how these rights are being sort of like defined. The second level is its implementation part of it. So in order for us to implement these rights, we need to be able to interact with each other, communicate with each other, learn from each other. That's what we're doing right now. We're sharing these experiences with each other in the sense that make sure that these rights are all, shared, and also, we are also part of these rights. So from that idea, that's what we have this democratic participations, as well as the human rights sort of like flowing into these societies through these dialogues and the conferences and the interactions, among these citizens and the people. And so, as I mentioned, like many of these rights are becoming like a lot of democratic societies, part of their constitutions and the rules and laws and stuff. So when we talk about peace and the human rights, especially we're here today at this peace conference. Personally, because previous speakers and then presenters mentioned about definition of peace. Of course, when you talk about definition of peace, mainly, I think one of them mentioned about the absence of the, conflicts and the war and then all these atrocities. I think that level, the defining the peace in that level is very much external, very much more like quite tangible forms. But at the same time, when you look at peace, there's two parts. One is the external part, one is the internal part of it. So I think the way that we understand peace may not be the same, depends on your upbringing, your background, your struggles, and then also a lot to do with your environment, the society, the community that you grew up with. So in order for us to build this sustainable peace, so the idea and then the concept of human rights play a significant role. Because these are the rights that define, how we can, treat each other, how we have these, freedom of expression, freedom of rights, freedom, to do things that are, sort of like dear to us. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we exercising these freedoms are not, imposing any negative forms and, reactions to the others as well. So without understanding these rights and without having these rights, implemented, to me, the society and as well as the community will be facing a very challenging time to take the next steps to create a peaceful society or community, even like a peaceful world. And on the other hand, if you look at human rights and peace, so on the absence of the human rights and peace it could be very devastating, especially the country where I came from when I was back in Burma growing up, and then I can tell you a little bit about my background stories about how these rights are very crucial for us not only to create a peaceful society, a peaceful community, just even for us to survive. So back in 1988, I was young students like most of us here. Thank you. That one of our students were shot and killed by the military. Most of you know that Burma has been controlled by one of the most brutal militaries for about 50 years. So that's how triggered started us mobilizing students to protest against the government, military at the time. So I was right in the middle of it, organizing student protests. We have thousands of people behind us. Luckily enough to escape, attacks and then arrest. And unfortunately, most of my friends and then colleagues and then others couldn't make it out. So when I look back, after, of course, I left Burma and then I came here, and then now I got a chance to look back and what happened, where I came from, it's really clear to me that because we went through what we went through, the horrible situation, thousands of people were shot and killed on the streets while they were, peacefully protesting. Up to 3,000, 4,000 people were shot and killed. Most of them are students. And because we didn't have these rights, we didn't have these, protections. Because of that, the military was able to, pretty much take any actions, any brutal action that they have in the disposable to eliminate these peaceful protests. So not only that, people lived in severe poverty over there, because they don't have these things. They don't have these basic rights and the basic needs that are being, some of us here, most of the time, maybe sometimes take it for granted, that out there, for us to achieve peace, we need to be able to have this secure and, basic needs are provided, this sort of like a community environment. Without providing, without creating, without being able to attain that level of peace within the community, I think it's hard for us, or for those who are out there, not only in Burma, if you look at Sudan and other conflict areas, it's really unimaginable for them to even think about peace while people are running for their lives and then try to survive and then don't know what's going to happen to them tomorrow when they wake up, and then forget about basic education or healthcare or anything like that. So, okay, let me go through really quick about Burma. I think most of you already knew. The Burma is very diverse, and in the Southeast Asia, hilly, a lot of natural resources, majority Buddhist Burmese. And this is where the 88 uprising that I was part of it, you see millions of people on the streets protesting against the military dictatorship at the time. But we were able to bring down three successive dictatorships within 2 months. But unfortunately, in 1989, another military coup took over. I was lucky enough to left the country and came to the United States. And then 2007, another uprising took place about this time, pretty much led by the monks, and similar conclusions, and then unfortunately, pretty much brutally cracked down by the military. And not only the things are happening within the cities, inside the cities, also around the ethnic regions, you see all these horrific, attacks and the uprooting of the ethnic nationals are taking place. And so, to end my talk, it's pretty much, I just wanted to, share this and then remind all of us that, we're here today, having this great opportunity for us to, share our experiences, learn from each other, and then knowing that these fundamental human rights are for everyone, for everybody, regardless of who they are and where they're from, or either they're Burmese or Sudanese or Americans, but because of the situation that we are in, sometimes we over here, sometimes take it for granted because these rights are already, guarantee us, already been protecting us. But at the same time, as a human beings, living from this place, and I hope that you'll, have this a little bit of sort of like a awareness and then ideas that these are the rights that we all have the responsibilities as a human beings to not only to protect and not only to promote. And we have a responsibility as a human beings to make sure that these human rights abuses are not happening, not taking place. Even though it's taking place in somewhere around the world that we may not know, in terms of we may not even know how to pronounce the country names or who they are, but I think as human beings, we all share these rights, and then we all share these responsibilities, and I hope that you all can continue working toward attaining this sustainable peace within your own community, within yourself, and then within the country, and helping and then reaching out to others who are not quite fortunate in the other part of the world. So thank you very much.